had a proud moment last week. As I was writing this episode about experiments I'm trying in my house this fall, my oldest son came up with an experiment of his own. His kitchen job this fall is clearing the table, and he was getting pretty frustrated.
The problem that I was having was that the table was overwhelmingly messy. My siblings weren't clearing their plates after meals.
So what did you decide to do about it?
I decided to make assigned seats so we know who forgot to take their plate over after meals. And the consequence is if they leave their plate or bowl or something on the table, they have to pay me $1.
I was all aboard for this solution, and it's actually been working really well. Mostly, I love that he took the initiative and the ownership of his job and figured out a solution to his problem. Moments like these are a little bit of payoff for all those years of training. This is the How She Moms podcast, where we talk about how different moms solve the same problems. I'm Whitney Archibald, a mother of 5 kids myself. I collect ideas so you can pick and choose what works for you and your family. Well, it's officially fall, and a new season means new routines and new experiments for this mad scientist to try on my guinea pig, my children. In this episode, I'm going to talk about 10 of these experiments that we're trying here in the Archibald home. So we kicked off our fall experiments with a new annual tradition borrowed from my friend Rachel Dahl, a family retreat. We loaded up our bikes, and believe me, getting 7 bikes on one vehicle is a feat in and of itself, and we headed up to the mountains for Labor Day weekend. We had a lot of family fun at the pool, on our bikes, and in the nearby stream. We ate good food, with the exception of some horribly botched Rice Krispie treats made by a child who will remain nameless, and we played a lot of games. But we also did some hardcore family strategizing. We wrote out a family timeline all the way until 2023, the year our youngest will graduate from high school. And on the timeline, we listed important family events like graduation, baptisms, etc. And we dreamed of places we want to travel together and other activities that we wanted to put in the timeline. It was really cool to see it laid out like that, and to think about how our family is going to change in the next little while. In another strategy session, we made and presented vision boards, and we talked about our goals. We also spent some time talking about why families are important and came up with a list of our own family values and brainstormed a family mission statement. It was very clear after even the first night that this is a tradition we will keep. It was just so nice to get away and celebrate being a family. I'll send out the full agenda in the How She Moms email this week and on Patreon. The next new thing about this fall was that it brought a new stage for me. It's the first year that all my kids are in full-time school. Kind of. At the moment, my 4 youngest are in school 5 days a week, but my oldest has gone from hybrid to fully remote learning for a couple of weeks due to a small COVID outbreak at his school. When I started How She Moms almost 3 years ago, I earmarked this year as the time to turn How She Moms from a hobby to a real business because I knew this was the year I'd have more time to invest in it. So, over the last couple of months, I've gone from spending about 10 hours a week on the podcast to about 30. I am loving it, and I have so many big plans, including last week's launch of the How She Moms Patreon account. Patreon is an easy way listeners can support the podcast with a membership of $5 a month. In turn, I use those resources to produce more and better content, including 2 bonus episodes a month featuring full interviews with some of the amazing moms I've included in my regular episodes. I decided to take the time to edit these interviews into bonus episodes because I have so many hours of amazing conversations recorded with moms. I share some of the best moments in my regular episodes, but there's so much great content where that came from. I'm so excited about the first official bonus episode on Patreon that I'm going to play the intro for you right now. Maria Kemp's kids know how to work, in part because she starts them young.
You know, the kids basically, as far as like cow work and riding, have ridden with us on the easier days, since they were babies in actually an infant front pack. And then from that, they transitioned to just riding in front of me on a very safe, gentle horse. And then they transitioned to being led on a horse until they're finally riding their own horse. And really, by the time they're 6 or so, like that's how old Kate is now. I mean, you can kind of count on them as, decent help to go turn the cows if needed. Or, Will at 11 is great help.
It was just so fascinating to get a glimpse into ranch life with Maria, and I've learned so much from her. I'm also working on a premium membership that I'm hoping to launch in January that will allow us to do online workshops in a group setting. We'll focus on one area or system each month in the categories of household management, motherhood, or personal development. I'll keep you updated as I get this up and running, but I'm really excited about it. I also welcome any other ideas of things you'd like me to offer in the Patreon community. I'm still figuring this out, and I'm sure it will evolve. If you want to sign up and support the podcast, just go to patreon.com/howshemoms. Okay, so perhaps my favorite new experiment is my pantry situation. Every year, I struggle keeping food stocked for school lunches throughout the week. Even when I beg and threaten, they would sneak their lunch food for snacks while they were home, and we'd be scrambling to find anything to pack by Thursday and Friday. Also, most of us are gluten-free, so buying school lunch isn't really an option for us. Several years ago, I tried to solve this problem by buying a lock with a code for my pantry to help to keep the kids out of it. But it wasn't a really reliable solution. I'd lock it sometimes, like when I was making dinner and wanted them to keep their hands out of the snacks, but I wasn't consistent with it, and when I did lock it, it was annoying to have to unlock it for every little snack. Plus, I felt like I was running a bread line, rationing out food. Like I was actually encouraging them to become hoarders with a scarcity mentality. Another problem was that with so many kids competing for the good stuff, they'd hurry up and eat their favorite lunch food, so they would make sure to get their fair share, or more than their fair share. There was always someone who didn't get any pudding or any fruit bars in the lunch before they vanished. Yet another problem was that a couple of my kids in particular have no self-control when it comes to treats. I couldn't buy any treats that weren't going to be eaten the day of purchase, or they'd disappear. This was annoying because sometimes it's nice to have little treats on hand. So this fall, I totally reorganized how I store food, and it has solved all these problems. I'm so excited about it. I now have a bin for each child in the pantry, low enough for them to reach when it's time to pack lunches. I let them each pick things that they want on the Walmart To Go app when I'm ordering my groceries. And, I check it, of course, because that could get out of hand. And then, as I unload the groceries after I brought them back, I just distribute them right into the correct bins. So far, they've been really good about respecting each other's bins and not stealing food from it. So now they know they're getting their fair share. We did have one day when I forgot to check my kindergartner's lunch and he brought only a bag of chips, but otherwise it's worked really great. The only other food in the pantry is stuff I use for cooking, like canned goods, oil and vinegar, rice, etc. And I also now keep some treats on the high shelves. But here's what really made it work this time. I moved all the stuff they're allowed to snack on, plus breakfast cereal, oatmeal, etc., everything I want them to be able to access at any time, to another bank of cupboards outside the pantry. So now I don't have to unlock the pantry every time somebody's stomach rumbles, and I don't feel like I'm rationing their food. But the beautiful thing is that I only have to shop for lunch food once a week, and they're not fighting over lunch food. Now I just keep the pantry locked all the time, except for when they're making their lunches in the morning and when I'm cooking dinner. The kids don't even ask me to unlock it because they like having lunch food available when they need it. It's been a beautiful thing. With the start of school, of course, comes the start of new routines. I'm on the second iteration of our new chore system. This summer, I just designated specific days for each chore, like bedrooms on Monday, bathrooms on Tuesday, etc. It was simple and it worked great. But in the fall, the kids have much less time to do chores and their schedules are all different. I started out our new routine with a grid on my whiteboard that had the days of the week on the top and the kids' names on the side. Then I filled in the chore that worked best with their schedules for each day. But I quickly realized that this was way too complicated for me, and it was really hard to adjust if they didn't get their chores done for that day. So I made a new grid with their chores for the week across the top and then their names on the side. Each day they have to do one of the chores and mark it with an X before they can play with friends or get screen time, but they get to choose which of the chores they do. By Saturday, they just have to have an X in all the boxes. They also have a few jobs that they do every day, like practice their instruments, do their homework, their kitchen job, and get some exercise. My two oldest have been biking the 2 miles to school, so that's some good built-in exercise. I'll post a picture of the new chart on Instagram and Facebook. It's not pretty, but it does the job. The next experiment is more of an update than a new experiment. I talked about allowance in the summer experiments episode. We started giving our oldest two a big allowance, $100 a month, but we require them to pay for everything themselves, including their $45 phone bill and all their clothes. So it's been really interesting to see it play out. one of our sons, who likes to save, just decided to make a big purchase of AirPods, which he loves, and he still has lots of cash to spare. The other, who likes to spend, is doing laundry very frequently because he doesn't want to spend his money on clothes. We're about to reach a pants crisis soon now that shorts season is ending, so I'm interested to see this play out. We give him plenty of money to cover wardrobe expenses and plenty of opportunities to earn extra cash with bonus work around the house. So I'm actually pretty happy with the financial realities that are setting in here. I'm going to interrupt myself here again to talk about another experiment that you can participate in. I'm collecting stories for a fun episode called How She Names Her Kids. If you have a fun or interesting story about how you came up with names for your kids or how you struggled with coming up for names, I'd love to hear about it and possibly feature you telling your story on that episode. I'm experimenting with an easy way for you to share your stories right from my website. Just go to howshemoms.com and scroll down to the Speak Pipe button. You can click on the button and then record up to a 5-minute story through your phone or your computer. I can't wait to hear your stories. Thanks. So now that my kids are in school and my daytime schedule opened up, I knew I needed structure to keep myself on track, and I really like the idea of organizing block time that so many people are talking about. Creating blocks of time to focus on certain tasks. Since I'm always a sucker for alliteration and wordplay, I created Marketing Monday, where I work on all my social media posts, emails, etc. on Monday, followed by, wait for it, To-Do's Day, the day that I work through my to-do list for both my podcast and my family. When I think of one of those niggly, detail-oriented tasks that don't necessarily need to be done on a specific day, I just write it in my planner for the next Tuesday, and bam, it's out of my head until then. Once Tuesday comes, I prioritize this list and I get her done. Nothing else is scheduled on that day, so I make amazing headway. And then, whatever I don't get done, I transfer to the list for the next Tuesday. Sorry, I meant the next To-Do's Day. The rest of the week, I can focus on writing and recording podcasts, and then I pepper interviews throughout the whole week to keep things interesting. Friday is Friday Friend Day, and that's when the kids can invite whoever they want, and we just kind of run an open house with a bunch of kids running in and out. That way, when the kids are asking all week for friends to play, I don't have to coordinate the tricky schedules that happen on the other weekdays, and they just know that Friday's the day they can invite friends over. Sure, it's kind of a madhouse on Friday nights, but it's nice to know that it's just that one night. And then Saturday is date night for my husband and I. Another delightfully successful new experiment is an unschooling approach to piano. I've really let the kids lead this fall, and it's been a huge success. I pick a selection of songs I think they'll like that are at or slightly above their level, and then I play them for them, and they tell me which ones they love. Some like to work on a couple at a time, others like to focus on one until they master it. Every now and again I have them do a sight reading day where they play through some books that are slightly too easy for them and keep those skills up. I don't have scheduled lessons for any of them, I just make sure they practice for 10, 15, or 30 minutes depending on their age and ability, and then I try to be nearby to help them through the tricky parts. They're all working on songs they're passionate about, so they often play longer than the required time or throw in a few extra practice sessions throughout the day. And now that I can keep treats in the house, I give them a little treat after they practice to add a little extra Pavlovian response to the joy of playing the piano. Probably my favorite part is that I realized I need to be included in this piano experiment. I'm treating myself to time at the piano almost every day, and I've been polishing up some of the songs I've been tinkering around with since high school. Even more fun, my neighbor joins me sometimes with her accordion, and we play duets. I've never accompanied an accordion before, and let me tell you, it is super fun. I'll put up a little snippet of us playing on Instagram this week. I think it's really important that the kids see me enjoying the piano as they're trying to learn the piano too. I've even signed up to play for an hour once a week in the lobby of a local hospital. Last Friday was my first day, and it was so fun just to sit and play and feel like I'm doing some service in the process. Music is definitely a big component of self-care for me. Experiment number 8 is our take on soccer practice. This isn't a new experiment, we actually did it last fall too, but it's just so great I have to share it again. Last year I decided not to let sports practice commandeer my whole fall schedule, so while one child played flag football, I enlisted my then 9-year-old son and his friend to run soccer practice for the younger kids and their friends while I supervised. It was such a success that we're doing it again this year. They get great exercise, they get leadership and planning experience, and we don't end up living out of the car. It's seriously the cutest thing watching them run drills with their clipboards. The other advantage is that it's also a lot cheaper. They charge $2 per kid per practice. Another routine that we always seem to be changing is our bedtime routine. I'm majorly struggling with insomnia these days, which seems to be pretty common for women of my age in their early 40s. So I'm really invested in making our bedtime routine go more smoothly. I'm also experimenting with the Whoop wristband, which my husband bought me for our anniversary. It records my sleep and activity level so I can really tell how long it takes me to fall asleep, when and for how long I wake up in the night, and how much time I spend in each stage of sleep. It's been so helpful to track as I try different methods of getting to sleep and staying to sleep. It's a bit pricey, but it's certainly cheaper than doing a clinical sleep study, and it's been super useful. Anyway, our current bedtime routine looks like this. We read scriptures as a family and pray together at 7 o'clock. Then the youngest two and I head upstairs. I've made a rule that once I go upstairs, I don't go down again. So I get everything done on the main floor, and then I get my pajamas on and brush my teeth while the youngest two do the same. Then I sing and read with them. During this time, the big kids go downstairs and watch TV until 9. I've totally resorted to bribing my youngest with a piece of candy in the morning if he stays in bed. Yes, that's the second time I've mentioned candy bribery in this episode. I'm not proud of it, but it's where we are right now. Candy really is the only thing that motivates that kid, so if it gets bad, I'll even open a bag of Skittles and eat one every time he gets out of bed. And then he knows he only gets what's left. Then everyone, even the older kids, are supposed to be in their rooms by 9 o'clock. I read to my 10-year-old at that time, and then I go to my own room. It took several weeks to get this 9 o'clock weekday curfew down, but now we're really doing well with it. The sun setting earlier is most certainly helping. I'm going to end with another favorite new family tradition, our weekly goal check-ins. Every Sunday we have a quick family meeting where we each share our 3 main goals for the week. I write them in my planner so we can check back and report progress with the previous week's goals, and then we set the next week's goals. It's fun to hold each other accountable, celebrate successes, and encourage progress. I think it's also really good for the kids to see their parents setting and accomplishing goals. So there you have it, 10 experiments that are going down in the Archibald family. Whether or not any of these experiments apply to your own family situation, I hope they help you think of your own experiments that you can try with your family. Whether they succeed or fail, you've learned something that will help you with the next set of experiments in this grand science project we call motherhood. Thank you for listening to the How She Moms podcast. If you'd like more resources related to each episode, plus lists of my favorite books, podcasts, and other things, and announcements about upcoming episodes and events, you can sign up for my email at howshemoms.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at howshemoms or go to howshemoms.com, where you can read or listen to past podcast episodes arranged by topic so you can find answers to the problems you're facing right now. You can also support the podcast by joining my Patreon community at patreon.com/howshemoms. I have a treasure trove of interviews that I've recorded with moms from different episodes, and I'll be editing these and releasing them on Patreon on the weeks that I don't release regular episodes. You'll also have access to all my favorite lists, worksheets, and other resources through Patreon. And special thanks to my own mom, Susan Singley, for recording the theme music to my podcast. She played this song often as I was growing up, and to me, it's part of the soundtrack of motherhood.